This time, St. Pauli, the cult of Germany's punk pirates.
No, nay, never. No, nay, never, no more. 'Cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank once and for all who is the greatest team of all time. My name is Graham Dunn, making the case for Oxford United at every opportunity, and joining me as ever, fresh from his winter break, it's our data king and guru, Jamie Rooney.
Thank you, Graham. Welcome back. Do you know what? I feel it's only right that we're coming back after a mid-winter break with a German team, because they're basically the guardians of the winter break, whilst other leagues, even Italian leagues, are kind of slowly getting rid of their breaks. Germany are like staying steadfast. They're keeping their winter break over the crazy Christmas period that we have in England, and letting their players have a couple of weeks off in Dubai or Saudi Arabia and negotiate new contracts, maybe.
In the glory years of England struggling to win major tournaments, whilst Germany routinely racked them up, the Bundesliga midwinter break was often cited as a reason as to why Germany's sides are more successful quite often. Is it because they have that 2 weeks off in the winter and makes them that much fresher for the winter tournaments? I think the way they completely rebuilt their coaching system and infrastructure to completely rebuild and have another period of dominance after an initial period of dominance, and the fact English football is largely reliant on German coaches now suggests it maybe had more to do with a German philosophy than the 2 week winter break.
I think it's wholly down to the midwinter break, and I just think everything else you've mentioned there is purely circumstantial, and you can't prove it anywhere.
Can I consider myself told? So yes, we are back after our winter break, and Jamie, I know you have nothing better to do over the midwinter break than to run through the stats in terms of teams we ranked in that first half of the season. And I think unusually, because I think historically we just put everyone in touch of greatness, maybe not this time round.
No, we've done 14 teams so far this season, which is an absolute change of the guard. By episode 5 in our first season, we'd already done 15 teams. So we've definitely slowed it down a little, concentrating on the actual detail rather than rushing through and ranking Brazil 1970 on the basis of beautiful 4-goal in a World Cup final against Italy as all-time greats. Yeah, 14 teams, and they're fairly evenly spread. But touch of greatness, our category that is finding it difficult to accommodate teams, is not being put under any pressure. We've only put Blackburn, Rovers, those who won the Premier League, Jack Walker's Blackburn in 94-95, and Argentina 1978 World Cup winners. Just three greats. But leading the way is our blinkered greats category, and that was very much helped by our seasonal special. That was an absolute delight, where we got Southampton in there, who were on their own until we did the season special, and now they've been joined by San Marino, which I still think is a very, very harsh ranking for them. Arsenal, which is brilliant to see an Arsenal team in blinkered greats. Long may that continue when we start doing more Arsenal teams. And Oxford United.
Yeah, I thought the Southampton call was pretty harsh. The Arsenal, this was the massively successful Arsenal winning side that we put there purely on the basis of their performance in the Stadium mystery. And I think there was something of a kangaroo court for the Oxford United one, which we will be revisiting and rectifying over the coming weeks. That will be a priority for me.
Let's see what the production team feel in terms of the teams on the line. But you know what? The Arsenal Stadium mystery, we talked about the Arsenal team, and I think just to be clear, we didn't rank Herbert Chapman and George Harrison's team that won 3 championships in a row in the mid-30s, and we're hopefully going to come back to that. Yeah, the Arsenal Stadium mystery. There was some debate about whether this was the first feature film to feature football So I couldn't help but my other love, being movies, I couldn't help but take that away and look at the feature films that were based around football primarily before the Arsenal Stadium history. And there are a few. In fact, there are 3. And it goes all the way back to 1911. Harry the Footballer. I don't think that's Harry Kane or Harry Maguire or Harry Winks, possibly, for those Leicester City and Tottenham fans out there. Harry the Footballer is a silent film made in 1911. You can watch it for free on BFI Player, and it's fantastic. It's only 8 minutes of your life. It's not an hour and 21 minutes wasted. We did on the Arsenal Stadium history twice. And also the winning goal and the great game that also were feature films, one in 1920 and one in 1930. Do you know the brilliant thing about that?
Mm-hmm.
George Allison, who we took a shine into, Arsenal manager / movie star / reporter / man of many jobs, wasn't the first superstar. There was a football player that starred in both the 1920 film, The Winning Goal, and the 1930 film, The Winning Game. The Great Game, the winning goal, and the Great Game.
Who was it?
That was a football player called Jack Cock. And incredibly, Graham, I don't think that's the first time I'm going to mention cock on this podcast tonight, because I think there's another opportunity for me to get my cock in. So yeah, he's quite a fascinating character. He's a First World War hero. He served with distinction, awarded the military medal for bravery, the Battle of the Somme. He had a career playing at West Kensington United and Old Kingtonians for the First World War. After the First World War, he then started playing for Huddersfield and Chelsea and Everton and Plymouth Argyle and Millwall. I mean, there's a lot of teams there. Maybe Plymouth, the one in green, is the one we can feature at some point because we like green teams. I think we're doing a green team next week.
Indeed.
And after that, he had a bit of charisma about him, and he was a good-looking boy. He was a David Beckham of his day, I think. So he was an attraction for these new fandangled things called movies that were coming to cinemas thick and fast. And he starred in 2 films, one as himself and one playing Jim Blake, a Millwall FC player. And Graham, you need to look at his Wikipedia page. He has a goal-scoring ratio that you will be absolutely thrilled to read.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll edit this down in the interest of time, if necessary. I'm just looking it up right now. Oh my gosh, yes. That is quite impressive, isn't it? I'm just trying to do the maths on it. The total there. That's almost like he's somewhere between a goal every other game and a goal a game, isn't he?
Absolutely.
But I like his 52 goals in 48 games for Brentford as a guest. I don't really know what that means.
Well, as a Manchester United fan, there's a few guests that been making appearances in the last few seasons.
Excellent. So, for those of you who haven't caught it already, there's a bit of a marathon bumper Christmas special Boxing Day bonanza, Arsenal Stadium mystery. The brilliant Oxford United treated extremely unfairly. Heart and Midlothian, San Marino, and Tranmere Rovers, some cracking teams which you tried to fire through in rapid style. So I'll point you in the direction of those.
I don't know if you can pull me out if I'm completely getting this wrong. Correct me, because we're doing St. Pauli tonight, as you build it at the top of the show. It's no secret they are known as a cult football team, and that's kind of the attraction for us. And I was trying to think of other cult football teams, and Tranmere Rovers, who you just mentioned, the 1990 team with the brilliant Nevin and the not so bad John Aldridge. Would they be a cult football team?
I think that's what Deck referred to John Aldridge very much as a cult player at various points. Your cult is difficult to fully, and this comes to the heart of one of our kind of issues with the team we're doing tonight. Is cult by definition, to quote the Alan Partridge, there's an Alan Partridge line, or aside from a cult. Small listening figures, small audience figures. Cult by definition means not terribly successful or minority or whatever. So, I mean, you could argue any underdog story is a cult story on the one hand. And this is sort of our issue when it came to doing this side. But we thought St. Pauli was a fascinating team to do for multiple reasons. But it's quite difficult to nail our colours to a mast in terms of which St. Pauli team to do. Other than it, the timing is perfect because, of course, they this season returned to the Bundesliga.
They have, and they've had a bit of a strange relationship with the Bundesliga. Primarily, St. Pauli, a football team that goes all the way back to 1907, really kind of played in the regional leagues and the Bundesliga too. So German football, for those who don't know, the professionalism didn't really begin until 1963-64, at which point St. Pauli were not in the top division. They went into the second tier because the rules at the time when Germany was defining its Bundesliga was they could only have one team from the same city. And St. Pauli are based in Hamburg, the port city of Hamburg in Germany. Germany's second largest city. So they didn't qualify immediately into the Bundesliga when it began. They're in the second tier. And they did pretty well in the second tier in terms of dominating it because of the promotion system that was in play at the time, which was a playoff. They didn't actually win through and qualify for the top league. So their relationship with the Bundesliga has been a bit hot and cold, more cold than hot. But yeah, Graham, they're absolutely, I'd say, flying high in the Bundesliga currently. What they're doing is steering clear of the relegation spots, which is historically what they've done normally.
Yeah, absolutely. And this side it's been a kind of a sort of fascinating journey for them over the years. And I mean, I find it quite interesting because they weren't always everyone's favourite liberal, left-leaning, woke, whatever you want to call them, alternative cult football club. But they do seem to have had a track record for it. So do you know about, I think it's Guy Acalzi, who...
Acalzi.
Acalzi.
We both got it wrong, so which
yes.
is pronunciation behaviour. Yeah, Guy Acalzi. I do, yes. Tell us all about him, Greg.
So he is the first black footballer to play in the German league, Togolese. I think a Togolese international, or definitely Togolese player anyway. And so they break new ground in that territory. I think it was 1964 or 65, something like that. So, well, I don't know, what would the equivalent in England be?
Oh, good memory test. Probably the Leeds United, Johansson, isn't it? In the 70s, Albert Johansson. But I don't want to be marked on that. But yeah, I think it's just circumstance and coincidence. But what it does do is kind of sows the seeds of what this football team is to become, which is slightly left of the norm. Otto Westerwald, he was the coach of the Togolese national football team, of which Guy Acalzi was playing for, and he convinced Guy Acalzi to come and play for St. Pauli when Otto Westerwald was the coach. And he spent about 3 or 4 seasons there and went on to become a regular in the German league until he retired, and then he was an assistant at Paris Saint-Germain. So he clearly likes German.
So when did St. Pauli, when did they go woke?
The amount of listeners we just lost.
I'm catering for everyone here.
I don't think it was a conscious decision. I think from what I understand, and I have to say, there is a lot of information on this football club. It's got an incredible following. For a team that doesn't have any real financial clout, that's never really won anything other than some lower league titles, very few of them, it's got an incredible following, of which we're going to pick apart. But yeah, it was around about the mid-1980s. They'd had a kind of an up-and-down relationship in the Bundesliga. Like I said, they failed to qualify through the playoffs in the 60s. In the 1970s, again, they were finishing in the 2 spots, but failing to qualify through the playoff system. And then in 1974, the Germans decided to make the Bundesliga to an official league. So Germany now has 2 professional leagues as well as its regional and lower tier leagues. And that was what St. Pauli needed in order to elevate themselves into the Bundesliga. 1977, they get promoted and they go straight back down. And then they drop out of the Bundesliga 2 into the Oberliga, which is basically the 3rd, 4th tier of the German league system. They run into a bit of financial problems and they get a lot of support from the fan base, the community. in the St. Pauli area of Hamburg. And that really starts to change the identity of what this football team is to become. Not a conscious decision, I believe, but it was an effort from the community that potentially sowed the seeds of what was to become the most left-leaning football team in the history of the game.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, a lot is made of the area in which St. Pauli is based. You know, a shortish walk to the Reeperbahn. Everything that happened in the region there. But I mean, you know, football clubs all around the world are very often based in pretty, either poor or rough or difficult areas of town. So it's not that in itself isn't particularly exclusive to them. And it seems to have grown out. Obviously, we're talking kind of the mid-80s where this is kind of developing and where kind of almost an antidote to the football hooliganism problem and image that there was around there in terms of supporting teams. I guess if this just happened to any club, it happening in somewhere like Germany is perhaps not that surprising given quite fan-led basis and structure of quite a lot of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it across the whole of European football in the late 70s into the 1980s, where football hooliganism becomes a more proficient feature in the game and quite possibly contributes to, especially in England, the decline in attendance because you've got a crowd potentially right-wing leaning. And in Germany, there was definitely a fascist movement growing. And at this particular moment, after everything that Germany had been through during the 1930s and 1940s, and St. Pauli decided that they wanted to be anti-fascist, and some of their fans were prepared to stand up for this. They didn't want their football club to have an identity with fascists, as was the case with some football teams. And there's some debate over this. I like to think there's no debate in terms of what I read. A football fan of St. Pauli called Doc Mabuse or Mabuse. He was a bit of a local celebrity, was part of a punk rock movement, part of a punk rock band. He had picked up the Jolly Roger, the skull and crossbones, giant black flag with the white skull and crossbones on it, and took it to the stadium. And it seemed to galvanize the St. Pauli fans. They adopted it as their identity. They adopted it in the cause of anti-fascism. And that was in the mid to late 1980s. And by the early 1990s, the club's hierarchy seemed to take hold of what was going on the terraces and decided to support and promote their fan base in their anti-fascist movement.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a kind of an evolution. And what's so great to see, and I think what draws people to this club is the organic nature of this. I suppose you can see this happens all the time with football fans that, you know, they maybe organically adopt a song that nobody has thought of or you know, colours or whatever. But this image, so the skull and crossbones, but everything that goes with it, the ethos, has just grown out of the supporters, and you know, have made a virtue of it and made it an absolutely central part of the DNA of this club. But the club have absolutely run with it. As supporters have definitely, you know, it's been a draw ever since.
Yeah, I think it kind of demonstrates how close the football team, in terms of its owners, its custodians, how close they were to the community in Hamburg. So to kind of pick up on these things and to embrace these things and to start encouraging the fans to become more left-leaning. As you said, Graham, it wasn't a conscious decision. It was more like the club was being led by the fans as opposed to fans that are dictated to by many, many football teams across world football. I mean, owners can do what they like with football clubs. Germany does have a bit more responsibility with the 50+1 rule that's been in existence for the last 20-odd years, or 30 years, I think. And St. Pauli were right at the front of this. They had kind of been in touch with their community and embraced this political awakening that was going on in Hamburg.
This creates an iconic team, but it doesn't necessarily create a successful team, does it?
No, the late 80s is one of their more successful periods. They do get promoted to the Bundesliga, which they do invariably a number of times, and they do stay in the top tier of German football for 3 seasons. So, if anything, you could argue that this is their most successful period. Later down the line, they did actually be, in the 2010-2011 season, they did actually beat Bayern Munich in a league game when they were in the Bundesliga, I think for a single season or maybe 2 seasons, when Bayern Munich were actually the world club champions at that particular moment. But I would argue, if you're looking at pinpointing a period of time where St. Pauli are at their finest, their greatest in terms of what we're judging, and I think we're judging the whole entity here tonight, it's probably the late 1980s when they spent 3 seasons in the top league, but also they were going through this transformation of becoming a more morally conscious football club, not just with anti-fascism, but that would grow to anti-many things.
Yeah, it becomes an all-embracing ethos, and some of it comes from there's another element which does come from the top, doesn't it, in terms of the people who are running that club.
Yeah, in 1990, the president of the football team, Heinz Weissener, former bricklayer, becomes the architect of shaping what is to be the new St. Pauli. Not only does he embrace the values that are building around the fan base and starts to shape this left-leaning football club, he also invests in the incredible football stadium, the Millerntor, in Hamburg as well, to allow for more fans to enjoy the football club. Just to kind of give you the perspective, in the late 1980s, St. Pauli will get in around about 1,500, 2,000 fans per home game. By the late 1990s, they're getting close to 20,000. So they've grown the support of the club incredibly. I think it's a little bit down to the president, Heinz Weissener, who obviously had kind of centered the football club around the core values, but also invested in the stadium.
And that match day experience is central to them. We love an opening track to and walkout music to come out to. St. Pauli come out to Hell's Bells by AC/DC. But it's weird. It's not a song I was particularly familiar with beforehand, and it's not even that up tempo, is it? It's quite foreboding.
I have to confess, I don't think I've heard until doing the research. Now, it may not be a surprise to you. I'm much of an AC/DC fan, and that doesn't mean I don't like AC/DC. I've just never listened to their music. So when I did listen to this one, it was a case of, well, I mean, how many bells are going to chime before we actually hear the music? And then when you do, it's instrumental. I mean, the players must have to take about 15 minutes to walk out to that just to get to the lyrics bit. But, I mean, this is the strange thing about football teams and football clubs and cult identity, how some things just take off and how some things don't take off. I mean, they also sing, I think they're the first team in Germany to sing on the terraces in English, singing You'll Never Walk Alone. The football chant synonymous with Liverpool and Celtic, but also Borussia Dortmund. But I have no idea. AC/DC is right over my head, Graham. I can't even comment on that because I don't think I've ever listened to an AC/DC song in my whole life. And we're probably losing more listeners right now. This AC/DC. I mean, this is the end of it.
I didn't listen to much beyond Highway to Hell. So Hell's Bells has been used as entrance music by Major League Baseball player Trevor Hoffman at his home games between 1998 and 2000, and is played prior to every New Jersey Devils home game. As players come out on the ice hockey team. St. Pauli, French rugby club, Toulon, and Greek football club, PAOK from Thessaloniki. PAOK. So there you go.
The musical references are really interesting because feels, I mean, this is more your field than my field, so I'll lean on you hopefully for this in terms of the research. But it feels like St. Pauli have they have a cult following. That's undisputed, even though we need to really understand what cult following really means. But in the context of what people accept as a cult following, St. Pauli seem to have that. And there's a lot of musicians that follow St. Pauli. Now, the reasons for that, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, not just in Germany, bands in the US, in Europe, beyond Germany, will be fans of St. Pauli and will put the skull-and-crossbones emblem with St. Pauli underneath it. The shirt I'm wearing today, that I got from Spanish retro chain, the Cooligan.
I can't believe I haven't noticed. Do you know, we've been talking about it half an hour. I've only just noticed. What's going on?
I know, I came just for the occasion. Literally, I'm wearing the skull-and-crossbones. I actually bought this. I mean, when we're doing the promotion stuff, we're not getting paid for it. I actually bought this in a retro football shop called Hooligans in Spain. So it just shows you the appeal of this football team. It wasn't a massive shop. It wasn't selling hundreds of football retro shirts, but they did have one of St. Pauli, and it's a pretty classic football top. But yeah, it just shows you the appeal. But there is quite a strong musical draw in the world of punk, rock, pop, and other genres of music available that St. Pauli have.
Yes, and there is a US band in particular whose name escapes me.
Gaslight something?
Yeah. Gaslight Anthem were sort of semi-responsible for developing their presence and highlighting St. Pauli. And I think that goes to some way, and this is what we touched upon, is St. Pauli's presence goes way beyond Germany in the Bundesliga, and especially when you consider, the equivalent of their success. It's a bit like, apologies in advance to Ian Ward, it's a bit like West Bromwich Albion being the biggest team in the world. This team that kind of hovers between divisions, occasionally has a moment in the sun. That St. Pauli have this kind of this following, and countless articles in the Guardian. Who'd have thought that? But their reputation goes well beyond the initial fan base.
Yeah, and it is incredible when you think about the teams that can go beyond the boundaries of their nation. They generally are massive football clubs. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, Liverpool, Bayern Munich. These teams have a commercial draw. These teams we're talking about, they win trophies on a regular basis. They have financial clout. They buy the best players. They generally have iconic football coaches and football managers. Now, St. Pauli has absolutely none of that. Financially, they're modest. Achievements, incredibly modest. I mean, they don't really have any titles of note. Bundesliga 2 titles, but that's about it. Yet their appeal goes way beyond the boundaries of the German border. They are estimated to be over 500 fan clubs of St. Pauli around the world. Now, that's an incredible appeal. Commercially, St. Pauli are the 4th richest successful team in German football, behind the big 3, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, I think Schalke.
Wow, it's incredible. But so I found this extraordinary because, again, as you touched upon it, financially as a club, they have never necessarily been far away from their next financial crisis. They've had to be inventive and try things. And one of the things, I think at one stage, had a pretty disastrous deal whereby they signed away the majority of their rights for their commercial sales. It didn't stop the sales. In fact, it seemed to do quite well. But I think they were basically earning 20% of everything that was sold from their replica kits and so forth. Something they were trying to get overturned. I couldn't find any sign as to whether they succeeded in getting that overturned or not. So, I suppose they have to sell even more, or have had to sell even more in order to make that work.
Yeah, but what they do now, fast forward to the modern day, the 21 season, they manufacture their own kits. They've created their own manufacturing organisation. It's called, I think DI exclamation Y. Do It, Improve Yourself is the name of the manufacturer, and they produce their own football kits. And there's something incredibly unique about their football kit, Graham, isn't there?
There is something unique, and we will come back at you with the unique thing about their kit after the break.
Hey, Graham, I'm just off to get my halftime bovril and pie. I heard we're growing, we're expanding. Like the universe, we're expanding. What else is happening? We've got so much going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to point you in the direction of the new, by far the greatest team newsletter.
Wow, a newsletter. What could be news? Tell me more, Graham.
We're coming at you every week with a free, I should stress, free newsletter, where we're going to go take a deep dive into one of the teams that we talk about on the podcast. Some weeks will be the team that we're doing this week. The weeks it will be one from the past, to be whichever random team we want to talk about. And we're going to try and use this to knit together one or two of the common themes that keep cropping up in this podcast.
Wow, and there are so many common themes as well. Next, we'll be making YouTube videos or something crazy like that, Graham.
Absolutely. So you can see us in visual splendor. Yes, so keep an eye out on YouTube and on YouTube Shorts, because we're going to be putting together a whole series of clips, mini clips and bits and pieces from our podcasts over the 3 seasons we've done so far. We thought a nice little way to pick out some of the more entertaining bits that we've covered over this period. How can people find that?
So we are on X still for the moment. That changed. I believe you are said and done, Dunn. I am Couch Pundito. We're also on Blue Sky, and we are in the process of polishing up a shiny new website, which will have this content and links to this amazing newsletter. By far, the greatest team is growing, and a new shiny website, is not so far away.
So, plenty to tuck into. Now, I think we might have finished our bovril. I've finished my pie. It's on for the second half.
Enjoy the second half, Graham. I can't wait.
Yeah, so welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the DIY home kits. Who hasn't attempted to make their own football kit? And just behind me, you can see there it is, the very own Tim's Valley Royals kit, which was made, I think, by yourself, was it not, Jamie?
Yes, it's an absolute masterpiece. A lot of tears and sweat went into producing that to just kind of demonstrate the beauty of what that football team could have looked like on the football pitch.
So yes, one of the beauties that St. Pauli have is the opportunity to work with everyone's favourite colour, a brown kit. Now, does anyone play in brown other than St. Pauli?
From a home kit perspective, I can't find anyone. I have looked. I wouldn't say I've had the most extensive look, but I've spent a good amount of time, minutes, on trying to find this. And there's the odd away kit. And I think one of them is one of your personal favourites that's definitely been referenced on this thing before.
Oh, which one? Which one?
Wow. I mean, how can you forget, Greg? The chocolate brown.
Oh, yes, Coventry City. Oh, what a kit. What a kit. I had forgotten that. Yeah, no, that's highly impressive.
But yeah, brown kit. I mean, it symbolises what we're talking about, a unique football team that gets special treatment in our podcast. No period. We're just talking about the whole thing.
Definitely so. Now, it is worth saying, so I think that was in 2021 or 22. They have, they recently announced a deal with Puma to do no more homemade kits, although I think they're still going to do the odd anniversary bits and pieces. But being a good left and liberal club, I think there's major commitments around the environmental credentials of the shirt and so forth. But it is just another example of this club doing things differently in some way. Now, the ground, we've not talked about the ground very much, but that is, again, a really, obviously it's the central part. There aren't many clubs that a ground isn't the central part of, but it's quite important to this story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It was developed in 1963, the Millerntor. And where it's built is quite incredible because it's overlooked by this incredible piece of architecture, the Flak Tower 4, I think it is, which is in the war. I think it was used as a defense and it was built for anti-aircraft bombing. I don't know if I'm probably not too expert, but it's quite a monstrosity of a building overlooks the Millerntor. But construction was done in 1973, and then in 1970 they renamed the stand. They renamed it to Willem. To tell you, there's going to be another cock reference in memory of the former president. And it came to light in 1997 when a author, Rooney, wrote a book, said, Pauli, You'll Never Walk Alone. There's two things incredible with this. The book was written in 1997. So you've got this football team that's never really achieved anything in terms of its greatness in titles, but it's achieved a lot of things in greatness in terms of what it stands for and its principles. And you've got the Never Walk Alone element. So this is the song that's been sung by the St. Pauli fans. And in his book, Rooney Martins actually exposes Willem Pop as a former member of the Nazi Party. So once the St. Pauli fans were aware of this, again, there was a movement to make sure the stadium was not named after Willem Pop. And within 18 months, 2 years, the stadium was renamed back to the Millerntor. Again, it's fan power. It's the club embracing how the fans are feeling off the pitch and taking actions to implement their feelings to keep the fan base at the core of this football team. And the fan base is an ultra movement. It's organised fans. It's ultras in terms of how we know European football fans, which we don't really get the ultra movement in the English game. It's never really reached the United Kingdom. But in Europe, in Germany, in parts of Eastern Europe, in Italy, obviously, the ultra groups are quite a considerable component of how football clubs are organised and run in a lot of positive ways, not just the negative connotations that come with being part of an ultra group. It's not primarily about violence. It's about the best interests for the football club, and ultras organise themselves to make sure that the football club puts the fan first and foremost. And that's what they've done at St. Pauli. As
we've said, this hasn't necessarily coincided with huge success on the pitch. So before this season, the last time St. Pauli had made it into the Bundesliga, it was the 2011-12 season. They didn't last very long that year, going down in last place, but they did achieve something there that they hadn't done for, I think, 34 years or something like that, which was to beat their rivals, Hamburg. So, and who would have thought it as a supporter of a relatively small and not very successful team? I have some sympathy for the small wins that you get and the small gains. I can see what the attraction is to supporting a club where those positive moments are really enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting because you think about football and you think about winning and you think about glory and you think about titles, and St. Pauli are just ripping that up. It's about identity, fan identity, and what the football club means to the team. So, yeah, the small wins are important, and I'm sure that they are enjoyed. But in the grand scheme of things, I think they've come in a bizarre way. Football comes secondary to what the club means to the community and the fans. It's style over substance in this instance. As we've talked about, they're sort of having a fresh go at creating a kind of sustainable future for them, and again, leading the way in many ways, or trying something different. So, as you said, they were promoted this year. so back in the Bundesliga, and they are attempting a fans cooperative ownership structure, which is kind of being built as a first, really. I mean, I think there have been lots of different kind of fan ownership structures. This is a very kind of interesting one because it doesn't matter how many shares you buy, you only get one vote. So there's a very clear one-for-one approach to this as they try and find a way. I mean, I think they're looking at they were hoping to raise something like 30 million euros through this, and this obviously covers, on the one hand, this is kind of covering still pandemic losses, but I think they're looking to take ownership of the ground through this.
Yeah, that's exactly how I understand it, and it is another initiative that's fairly new in the world of football, but I think it's completely within character and context of what football team we're talking about right now.
That was, I think, October, November time they announced it. Do you know what other thing they were very much first in doing amongst football clubs in November? Everything's lined up for it, okay? What would you expect a left-leaning club to do in kind of November time, sort of around the time of Donald Trump?
I don't need any more please. You've led me down the path beautifully, Graham. They have become, like, not too many of us against X. I think they have quickly announced they're leaving X and going to maybe Threads or Blue Sky. I don't know. I reckon that's where you're going, Graham.
Yeah, it's a great spot. Yes, they were in November. They were the first German football club. I don't know if they're the first club, full stop, but definitely the first German football club to announce they were leaving X and they were going to join Blue Sky.
I mean, the list goes on and on. In terms of their female fan base, it's larger than any other German football team, I believe. They definitely are promoting inclusivity, so they do a lot of good stuff for the LGBTQ community. They have put the rainbow colours on their kit permanently. And I know we have those things in the Premier League where with the rainbow laces in the knee. These are all points in time. So Pauli have these principles in play. In fact, on their website, if you go to their club website, and I will stress, make sure you go to the fcstpauli.com website and not the stpauli.com website. Otherwise, you will get something incredibly different. Probably going to lap dance and stuff. That was a mistake. And I can assure the listeners I did stay on the wrong site for too long. But what they have done as well, I forgot my train of thought. Where was I going with that, Greg? Oh, so St. Pauli as a football team are inclusive and have been inclusive. They even going back to refugees, it can be quite a hot topic for some people. And again, we're talking politics. I mean, we spent more time talking about politics on this podcast tonight than we have done football. And we're doing it because of St. Pauli's embracing of fundamentals. And that's what I was saying. I was leading myself away. They have their guiding principles are on their website. So you can go onto their website, you can look at the fan page, and on the fan page, there's a section called Guiding Principles or Principle Guides. Depends on how you want to do your translation into German. I think they're the only football team I know that will state principles, and those principles are based around how they conduct themselves and how they want their fans to conduct themselves. And there's a lot of moralistic attachment to those, quite commendable in my mind in terms of what those guiding principles are. To be a fan of St. Pauli, and St. Pauli is open to all, but they are looking to attract, I think, what they would call the right fan. Actually, the left fan.
The left fan, as it turns out, in this instance. So we've talked a lot about the club and the ground and the area and the supporters and the legacy. We haven't talked much about the players. Now, I did some very cursory searching around here, and I couldn't really find any standout. I kept assuming there would be, a really established household name who had played there at some stage. I couldn't find much sign of that. No,
I think, Graham, this is the first team that we've covered in my research.
Which we haven't covered.
Well, I didn't even think about covering. There was so much going on. and so many topics of interest on attached to this football team that I didn't even give the players a second thought. And I think that's a testament to why we're talking about them. I'm not saying the players don't have any importance. And in fact, I did read one particular blog where somebody spoke about St. Pauli having fans from all over Germany. I think in Germany, they something like 11 million fans, which is incredible. If that statistics are correct, that's just ridiculously incredible. 11 million fans. And so the blog mentioned that probably most of those fans can't even name any of the players, but that's not the point. And I would endorse that opinion for what we're doing here today, naming the players in this particular episode for this particular team. I don't think has the same importance that it's had previously. But I do know Junior Hoylett has played.
Excellent.
So, and James Lawrence, he of the Welsh fame.
Yes.
So I can name a couple that I am aware of, but beyond that, I'm scrambling around.
It would be a dereliction of duty, of course, if I was to pass up any Oxford United opportunities and mentions here. And according to his Wikipedia page, he hasn't actually played this season. I'm hoping that is just simply not updated, because it'd be a criminal loss, because Finn Stevens, Brentford's Welsh under-21, I think he might be national fullback, who played last season for the promotion-winning Oxford United, joined St. Pauli last summer. So there you go. So they have at least one, I can at least give you one current active and former Oxford United player playing and plying his trade at St. Pauli.
Brilliant. Our recently and latest inductee into the Blinkered Greats category gets the mention.
Now, what other thing would you expect a liberal and left-leaning football club to do? Cult team surely would be involved in a cult or alternative World Cup, and they certainly were, weren't they?
Yeah, this is fantastic. You know how we love an unusual cup competition, the Watney Cup and the Thomas Lipton.
I assume Thomas Lipton. Oh, I assume it's his tournament.
Wow, I mean, he was the man that got it all started. We should never forget the importance of Thomas Lipton when it comes to international cup competitions. And the FIFI Wild Cup, as it was called, St. Pauli hosted in the May and June of 2006 in the readiness of the FIFA World Cup being hosted in Germany. And it was to showcase football teams that FIFA don't recognise. So it was a small participation: Greenland, North Cyprus, Zanzibar, Gibraltar, who now have rightfully deserved their place at the table in the UEFA knockout competitions, and Tibet, or were joined by the Republic of St. Pauli, which is the junior team of St. Pauli at the time. And you think something like this would be a bit of fun and you want to get behind it, but even this came with its political complexities, because there was a lot of resistance from China and FIFA to exclude Tibet from taking part. I mean, the forgotten team, that's one we could talk about, maybe in a pre-season friendly, the forgotten team of Tibet. Guys that just want to play football, yet because of political pressures, they're unable to achieve that simple desire. But they did go to Hamburg. They did take part in what was the first and only FIFI Wild Cup in 2006.
Northern Cyprus win that tournament, and the St. Pauli, Republic of St. Pauli, as they call themselves, the junior team, a creditable fourth place behind Northern Cyprus, Zanzibar, and Gibraltar. So I think that probably wraps it up. Do you, unless there's anything else, do you think we should get to the ranking?
I mean, the ranking's there. I know the context.
Well, we know the ranking already. So as a reminder, we have 5 categories of greatness. all-time greats, true greats, touch greatness, edge of greatness. I think for me, there are two on show here. One is blinkered greats, and one is not as our bonus category, not necessarily great, but without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. Any team for whom the highlight is beating Hamburg feels like that is blinkered greats for a start. That is
former European Cup champions, Hamburg.
Yeah, decent side, but it's not
City in Germany.
Yeah, and they had, obviously they did beat Bayern Munich and bits and pieces, but they feel probably blinkered greats. I mean, it's difficult because we're not narrowing down to a specific team, but even within that, it would be difficult to go beyond that, unless we think that other slightly rogue category is a better fit.
Let me try to convince you to move them up a bracket to edge of greatness. So they win nothing, generally, but they have guiding principles and they have morals. And they have this in the game where it goes against the grain. And there's a lot of focus on success, and there's a lot of focus on commercial activities. And whilst we see in the English game the political nods of increasing awareness of inclusivity, St. Pauli have been doing this since the late 1980s. They've been anti-fascist, they've been anti-homophobic, they've been anti-sexism, they've been anti-racism for a long period of time. Now the rest of the world is slowly trying to catch up, and we see it with the Premier League with rainbow laces, players taking the knee. That happens in dispatches that raises awareness about very important issues going on in the wider context beyond football. And what St. Pauli are, they are more than a football team. They're a force of nature, and they intertwine politics and football incredibly well, and they embrace the two. And the two have always been linked together from the very beginnings of football. And we've done this with a number of teams where politics has been a big thing. If you think back about why do we do a minute's silence in the UK every November, it's because we are raising awareness of the atrocities that happened in wars gone by. Now, wars are all political, as we know. Football is political. So what St. Pauli are doing is something that is going against the grain of football. What they're doing is something that is a conscious decision they've been doing for some time. And to have moral guidelines on the club's website to kind of state who they are and what they are, I think is quite brave. And I think this is how I'd like to see football. I'm talking to a lower league fan. And this is how I like to see football progressing in the future. But I don't think it's going to happen. So I think they are pushing us to the edge of greatness in the temptation of going into the touch of greatness of football being totally inclusive and all clubs embracing the guidelines of St. Pauli. For me, it's edge of greatness.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can see where you're going with that. I think it feels more like you have made me rethink fractionally. When we think about some of the teams that we put in that bonus category of not necessarily great, but without them we wouldn't be where we are today. They're usually trailblazers. That category definitely has
so I can help
clubs in there that have achieved, while they themselves don't necessarily have the results and the honours that go with it, they go and deliver stuff that becomes the norm elsewhere.
So let me try to help you with that. I like the fact we're having a debate about ranking, actually. We don't do that often enough. Maybe we should do this more often. In our not great, which is our category 6, which sits out our boundary of our top 5 categories, we have got FC Liège. Now, FC Liège were responsible for stopping Jean-Marc Bosman from moving clubs, and that invoked the Bosman ruling. So without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. FC Start, they were the team that organised themselves in a bakery and fought against the Nazis and won. Then we got So Lemry, the protest football match, 149 own goals. The brilliant Rochester, Lancers, Michael Lewis, talked us through this fantastic NASL team that only existed for a short period of time. Total Network Solutions, we've done enough on them. Allen FC, founded fathers of the football game. And then we've got in that bracket, Thames Valley Royals, a football team that never even existed. I feel, and I totally agree with you saying, I think you're right, but I still think St. Pauli's greatness is bigger than those football teams in that particular bracket. And I think Blinkered Greats disrespects what St. Pauli are trying to achieve. Edge, for me, complements what they're trying to do.
Blinkered Greats all day long, surely. Blinkered Greats all day long. Yes, a team occasionally goes up into the top league.
I will bow to your judgment, as we always do. I don't want to change the way we do things. I like to feel I've given my case, and now I sit and wait the jury's decision.
And there's always the promotion and relegation end of season review, which we'll do. So, St. Pauli, no time zone necessary. Blinkered Greats. Excellent. Good to be back.
Very good to be back, and good to be talking about fantastic football teams like St. Pauli. And next week, Graham, I think it's even more exciting for us because when we call it a listener, Gus
Kronos. I don't think I pronounced it. I've got a premonition that I will pronounce it even worse next week.
Yeah, we had a listener reach out to us, Graham, as you know, and asked us if we were interested, if we had considered doing Panathinaikos 1970-71, to which they were on one of our low lists, but not on our main list. And we were fully on board. And we've got, I think, for the first time, a listener coming on as a guest next week. And I'm super excited about that.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder to any of you, if there are any teams out there that you think we are missing out on or would be ideal to fit in. I think you've seen our style, which seems to focus on teams that aren't that great, but we're willing to consider great teams as well. Do let us know. We're always open to different stories and different teams to have on. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. Our socials is probably the easiest way to get to us across various bits and pieces. Rather like St. Pauli, I am on Blue Sky. I can be found there at Said and Done. I am, I think, still vaguely looking at my X account as well. Same with Jamie, I think, who can be found under Couch Hundito on both forums. It's probably the easiest way to get hold of us. We'll also just to flag that we will starting a newsletter, which will be coming at you. Again, you can contact us via the socials to get that, and you'll be hearing much more about that from us and our new revamped website. The newsletter will feature either blogs on teams coming up or blogs on teams that we've done previously, depending on which one is of interest that week, as well as details of upcoming teams and any other business and any opportunities to correct any falsehoods we've made in our massive assumptions. So that's it for this week. Thank you again, Jamie.
Thank you, Graham. That was good fun talking about a football team that's never won anything and arguing about which particular bracket. I have to commend you, though, because I was I've got down here all-time greats or true greats, and you knew me well enough. You set it up. You're like, I'm not bringing you back. I'm not bringing you first because I know where you're going with it. You foolish man. So you kind of set the tone that, this could only be bracket 5 or bracket.
Very small bracket, yeah. I offered you the random bracket.
You did. And
I gave you an out.
It threw me. I had to think on the spot and I failed. But you're right. Promotion relegation, I already noted St. Pauli. I'm looking forward to our promotion relegation episode.
Excellent. Okay. That's it for this week. We will be back next week with Panathinaikos and their amazing European Cup run of 1970 and 71.